This was Manchester United the way memory has them.
Peter Drury, commentator extraordinaire, NBC, Sky Sports, the man with the golden voice and the silver tongue. Welcome. Thank you very much for joining.
Thanks for asking me, Steve.
No, I had to get you on. I was in the Stretford end on Saturday, but then obviously when you get a performance and a result like that, you just can't consume it enough when you get home and reconsume. I thought your commentary was phenomenal. As I've just been saying off air, I, like a lot of United fans, are kind of pinching myself that it even happened. The not just the result, but the performance, the manner of it. You were at the derby, of course. How did you rate the display overall?
Obviously, it was terrific from a Manchester United perspective. Clearly, I'm not a Manchester United fan, and it's important for me always, whichever club I'm dealing with, to lay that out there. I'm all about the narrative, and whichever the club is, which is having its glory moment, hopefully articulating it in a way that reflects the way, in this case, the Stretford end feels. So this is not what your viewers and listeners will want to hear, but it's the same for me when Anfield's bouncing, or when Manchester City are winning 4 titles in a row, or when Newcastle are winning the Carabao Cup. Those are lovely moments to be witnessing and hopefully reflecting. And Saturday, from a Manchester United perspective, was, I think, remarkable because it contrasted so much with what expectation has become. It's funny looking back, years ago, 20, 25 years ago, I was lucky enough to do sort of live Champions League games at Manchester United, and you almost always got an electric performance, to the extent that when you got a flat night, which I suppose did happen once in a while, you weren't quite sure where to go with it. And we've almost reached a stage over the last few years where it felt as though the reverse was true. This was Manchester United the way memory has them, and as a broadcaster, you kind of had to find an almost long forgotten gear, because it was just so out of the blue, and just so kind of zestful, And if Manchester United had scored in the first minute, say, as of course famously they did at Ipswich in Amorim's first game, if Manchester United had scored in the first minute, I'm not sure the reaction would have been quite as it was. You're better qualified to tell me this, because it would have been like, okay, wow, we've kicked off and we've scored a goal. But when the goal eventually did come, after a couple of near misses and offsides and so on, it was, in fact, that first Mbeumo goal, a reflection by then of a performance. It wasn't just a kind of shot in the dark that happened to go in. It was a reflection of what had been happening for an hour or so already. And so that made the reaction on the Stretford end and all round Old Trafford, I don't know, these things are intangible, they're not measurable, but it was a goal celebration that kind of took you back. And I don't know why that is. I don't know how you come to that conclusion, but that is how goals, 20 years ago used to feel at Old Trafford.
And I thought you platformed it beautifully, because obviously Mbeumo opens the scoring. You call the goal as you have to in the moment, and then you left a gap of virtually 15 seconds without saying a word. You just let the atmosphere do the talking, didn't you?
Yeah, because it would have been rude not to, really. It's when you do get a reaction like that, there's 70,000 people doing your work for you, so there's really not too much you can add. And actually, what it does do is it's slightly cheating. It allows you thinking time. You sort of think, right, what next? Because everybody else is screaming and shouting. And it was a beautiful moment. And from a commentator's point of view, actually, it was a kind of a dream goal, in that it was also visible. It wasn't bouncing around in the 6-yard box. It was again, it was a kind of old style Manchester United goal. You know, it came from a Manchester City set piece, headed away by Harry Maguire, and off United went. And 3-4 passes, you know, and there we were, and Burma was on the end of it, and it was also clear and laid out, and almost as the ball was crossing halfway, you were thinking, this is going to be a goal. It's a goal here, and so that kind of allows you that chance to build a momentum, and then, as you say, just to let it happen.
One of the lines that you came up with was the depth of meaning is evident for those who watch and those who play. I mean, when Old Trafford is like that, as you say, a total throwback, when it's like that, when the players and fans are in harmony, as it were, how powerful a weapon is that for United? Because it's so hard for the opposition to play against and deal with, isn't it?
Yeah, I have to say again, and you'll understand, Steve, this is about self-protection, because I need to put it out there whenever I'm on. You know, I have no favour here, you know, and so the same is true, of course, of other big clubs. I've got to say that. But yes, it is certainly true of Manchester United. And what struck me as much as anything were the immediate, and I've just been watching them back actually, the immediate post-match interviews. My colleague Patrick Davison had Lissandro Martinez and Burmo, and they were gleaming. You know, there was almost a childlike nature to the way they were responding, and it's as if. And I, you know, it's not for me to say this. What's going on inside their heads and their hearts, I don't know. But it was almost as if for them a penny had dropped. In the terrific players though they both are, and of course, Burmo's only been at Old Trafford very recently. But it's like, wow, this is how it's meant to be. You know, this is why I joined Manchester United. You know, it was kind of that thing, and they were experiencing what you would consider to be the great generations. Or I don't suppose they ever took it for granted. I'm sure they didn't, because you'd be fooled to take it for granted. But what they became accustomed to, and if I were a Manchester United fan, what would excite me, I think, in the aftermath of Saturday, is the suspicion that penny's dropped, and you know, maybe that these guys are now going to want to repeat that, you know, and not let it be a one-off, because I'm sure you, as a Manchester United fan of a certain generation, you know, you've lived through plenty of false dawns, haven't you? Plenty where you think, that was it, here we go, and then, you know, so maybe there is evidence to suggest it is only Monday morning, it's only 48 hours ago as we speak, you know, and your next game is at Arsenal. You know, who knows where it's going, but in the giddiness of the moment, there's perhaps reason to suppose there's something stirring.
You've either read my mind or read my notes, because I've got here, we've had a lot of false dawns. As a neutral who has seen the lot over a number of years, did Saturday feel like something different to you?
Well, yeah, it did in that, and this is not me speaking because I'm not an analyst, but obviously I work with Manchester United people, very famous ones, and their acknowledgement of such a complete performance. You know, I mean, Manchester United won the derby at City last season with that Ahmad goal in stoppage time, and I'm sure for you guys that was a delirious moment, and you would have thoroughly enjoyed it in the moment. But I think, I don't know, it's so hard to go back and imagine how you felt at the time, but I don't think anyone felt that was a kind of revolutionary or transformational moment necessarily. It was just a moment in time, and sport is made up of moments. It just in terms of mood, and maybe it makes a difference because it was at Old Trafford. In terms of mood, this one did feel different because, beyond question, and I'm sure Manchester City fans would acknowledge this, United deserved to win the game. You know, and so Manchester United beat, whether you like it or not, a very, very good Manchester City team. And Manchester United merited that victory, you know, and it wasn't a last-minute snatch. It was kind of the real thing. And so that maybe, it is so easy, even for neutrals, because my job's to get carried away by the narrative, to get carried away. and so that's why I'm sort of putting everything in brackets and being slightly reserved, because these things can come back and bite you. And if Manchester United get outclassed at Arsenal on Sunday, you'll feel totally different. But there's no reason why you shouldn't think right now that actually, if they go to Arsenal with the same attitude and the same approach and the same front-footedness and the same mutual belief and the same understanding of how it is to be representing Manchester United, then, that given how good Arsenal are, just as I've said, given how good Manchester City are, there's no reason to suppose why it shouldn't at least be a really, really good game, like Arsenal Man United of old.
There you go, another throwback. Well, let's hope for that. Let's hope for, the outcome will be what it will be. But let's, at least from a United point of view, hope for a performance matching those levels that we saw on Saturday. And, if you're opening the gantry, then I hope you have another spectacle to cover.
Yeah,
thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for your time, Peter. You're a gentleman. Really appreciate that.
Thanks so much, Steve. Really enjoyed that conversation. Thank you.